starts to feel like safety.
It doesn't feel like failure anymore. It feels like warmth, like the soft light of a screen in the dark, like another 5 minutes under the blanket of comfort you never questioned. Weakness no longer burns, it cradles. And that's the problem. You're not breaking because life is unbearable. You're breaking because your numbness became familiar. And in a world built to pacify discomfort, that familiarity becomes identity. We've entered an era where sedation is sold as wellness, where rest is confused with retreat, where dopamine floods the brain, not through earned triumph, but through cheap novelty and curated distractions. Cal Newport wrote that deep work requires discomfort, but discomfort is now framed as toxic, as unnecessary, as outdated. So you scroll instead, you swipe, you soothe, and you call it balance. But the truth is, most of what we call balance is avoidance with better branding. Marcus Aurelius warned us, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. But the right thing rarely feels good, and so we chase the pleasant instead of the just. We've been taught to believe that feeling good is a sign of alignment, but sometimes feeling good is just the absence of challenge. Sometimes it's the slow death of discipline, painted as peace. Weakness used to feel like a warning, now it feels like self-care. And that shift, silent, cultural, invisible, is the true crisis. Because you will not hear the alarm, you will not feel the fire, you will only feel safe, as everything you were meant to become quietly dissolves in the background. When numbness replaces direction, there comes a moment when you stop asking where you're going, not because you've arrived, but because you've stopped feeling lost. The numbness settles in like fog, gentle, unnoticed. It replaces direction with comfort, motion with sedation, and you tell yourself you're okay, because nothing hurts. But that's only because nothing moves. You feel safe, not because you've built strength, but because you've silenced the signals. Pleasure, not principle, has become your compass. And the thing about pleasure is, it never leads. It lures. It loops. It keeps you spinning in a cage you forgot to see, a cage with velvet walls, golden locks, and a door you never try to open. Most men confuse this for peace. But it's not peace, it's paralysis. We live in a time where feeling fine is enough to avoid change, where low-level distraction becomes a life strategy, where goals become background noise, and internal resistance is constantly medicated with short bursts of relief. But clarity does not come from relief. It comes from friction, from weight, from doing what actually matters, even when your nervous system begs you to delay. You are not failing because life is hard. You are failing because you've built a nest inside avoidance. And each day you reinforce it with small comforts, with skipped challenges, with silence you never confront. Numbness is not neutral, it's direction in reverse. And the longer you drift, the more convincing the illusion becomes. That you're okay, that you're moving, that this is life. But deep down, you know something is missing, something you stopped chasing, something you stopped being. The paradox of dopamine comfort. There's a quiet lie hidden in modern pleasure. It tells you that if something feels good, it must be good. That ease is a sign of alignment. That effort is unnatural, but the truth is simpler, darker. Your brain doesn't crave meaning. It craves stimulation, and dopamine doesn't ask if something is true. It only asks if it's new. Every scroll, every notification, every bite, every escape, they light up the same circuits, over and over, until repetition becomes ritual, until your mind no longer reaches for purpose, only for the next hit. This is the paradox. Comfort was supposed to restore you, but now it's eroding you, and you call it rest, but it's just retreat. Over time, you begin to tolerate more and more of what once would have disturbed you. You tolerate mediocrity, you tolerate disconnection, you tolerate a shallow life. As long as it's wrapped in soft stimulation, the body adapts, the brain rewires, the discomfort that once warned you disappears. And suddenly, your weakness doesn't feel like failure. It feels like home, but that's not peace. That's pathology. And no amount of gentle self-care masks the fact that your nervous system has been hijacked, that your sense of okayness is chemically curated, that the hunger for depth has been buried under a mountain of momentary highs. You were built for challenge, for movement, for effort that leads to something real. But your reward system, hijacked and hollowed, no longer cares. And unless you interrupt that loop, unless you see the comfort for what it is, your strength will rust silently under the weight of constant pleasure. When self-acceptance becomes self-abandonment. At first, the idea sounds noble. Accept yourself. Be kind to your flaws. Don't force change. But there's a hidden danger in that softness. When acceptance becomes a shield that protects you from growth. When you stop evolving, not because you found peace, but because you're afraid of conflict. And in the silence of that avoidance, you call it healing. But what if the self you're accepting is not your essence, but your defense? A collection of coping mechanisms, habits of escape, and identities shaped by fear. What if you've been hugging your limitations and calling them personality? What if you've confused compassion with collapse? Growth doesn't feel like ease. It feels like confrontation. It feels like standing in front of a mirror with no filters. It feels like peeling off layers that once protected you, but now suffocate you. That is not abandonment. That is real acceptance. Meeting yourself fully, without excuses, and still choosing to rise. The culture has made comfort into a virtue. It tells you that pain is oppression, that discomfort is trauma, that resistance is toxic. But some resistance is sacred. Some discomfort is the voice of your dormant potential, begging to be heard. And some pain is the threshold you must cross to reclaim your life. You're not supposed to feel good all the time. You're supposed to feel real. And reality is not always gentle. Sometimes it shakes. Sometimes it hurts. But it never lies. And in a world full of emotional novocaine, truth, raw and unfiltered, might be the most powerful thing left. Musashi would call your comfort cowardice. Musashi didn't train in luxury. He didn't meditate in warm rooms or journal about discomfort. He slept on the ground, faced death without spectacle, and carved discipline out of silence and solitude. Not because he was extreme, but because he knew what softness does to a man. It dulls the sword. It fogs the mind. It makes the spirit forget how to fight. Robert Greene once said that power belongs to those who endure discomfort until it becomes normal. Musashi lived that truth. He didn't fear pain. He feared becoming soft. Because softness, once accepted, becomes a lifestyle, a slow fading of presence, a quiet giving up that feels like peace, but ends in powerlessness. Your weakness doesn't feel like weakness anymore, because the culture around you normalized it. Normalized sedation, normalized escape, normalized days without meaning, filled with little comforts that lead nowhere. What you call peace may just be the absence of challenge, and that absence is not neutral, it shapes you. Musashi wrote, "Do not seek pleasure for its own sake." Because a warrior doesn't chase comfort. He trains in its absence. He becomes dangerous in the silence most men avoid. And in that silence, he hears what others never do, the voice of his own strength. You are not here to be endlessly pleased. You are here to wake up, and that awakening won't feel good, but it will feel real. And that's where everything begins.